My name is Jaden Mason. She kissed my forehead, smiled like nothing was wrong, and said, I'll be right back. I was 10 years old. I believed her. But that was the last time I saw my mother, for 8 long years. This is the story of how I found out the truth, and why I'll never forgive her. Before we dive in, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story like this. Now let me tell you how my mother disappeared, and what happened when I finally found her. I remember the color of her jacket. Red. A little faded at the cuffs, with one loose button near the collar. My mom always wore red when she was going somewhere important. That morning, it was zipped up to her chin as she knelt in front of me in the kitchen, brushing crumbs off my hoodie. Jaden, baby, she said, smoothing my cheek with her palm. Mommy has to run a quick errand, okay? I'll be right back. Just stay with Daddy, and be good. I was only 10, but I knew something was wrong. She'd packed 2 bags the night before, stuffing them when she thought I was asleep. I watched from the crack of my bedroom door as she zipped them up quietly, tears glistening on her face. She didn't notice me, or maybe she didn't care. Either way, she didn't say goodbye then. Now, she kissed my forehead. Warm. Careful. Final. Can I come with you? I asked, clutching her sleeve. She smiled, but it was the kind of smile you use to lie to someone gently. Not this time, sweetheart. I'll be back before dinner. She left through the side door. I heard the engine of her old Honda Civic turn over, the tires crunching down the driveway. Then, silence. I sat on the couch, waiting. Dad was in the basement, hunched over boxes of old tools and wires like always. He didn't ask where she went. He didn't even look up when I told him. She just went out, he muttered. She'll be back. But she didn't come back that night. Or the next. I waited by the living room window every Sunday after that. I'd line up my plastic army men on the sill, pretending they were guarding the driveway. My eyes would lock on every red car that passed. My heart would race, only to fall again. After a while, I stopped asking Dad about her. His face would tighten every time I said her name. Don't know, was all he ever said. She made her choice. The house grew quieter. Cold eggs for breakfast. Laundry piling up. Dad coming home later and later. I started eating dinner alone at the kitchen table, the clock ticking louder than my thoughts. At school, I lied. Told everyone Mom had taken a new job in D.C., that she traveled a lot but still called me every night. I needed that lie. It kept me from crying in the bathroom stalls during lunch, but every Sunday, I still sat by the window, even when snow fell. Even when rain slapped against the glass. Even when I started to forget the sound of her voice. She said she'd be right back, and at 10 years old I believed her. That was the last kiss she ever gave me, and the first time I learned that love can walk away without a backward glance. After she left, our house felt like a museum of the person she used to be. Her coffee mug stayed in the sink for months. Her slippers sat by the back door until winter came and Dad finally tossed them in a black trash bag without a word. But her scent lingered, in the hallway closet, on the scarf draped over the coat rack. I caught traces of her sometimes, like a ghost brushing past. Our house on Sycamore Lane didn't fall apart all at once. It cracked slowly, floorboard by floorboard, silence by silence. Dad worked nights at the shipping facility in Glen Burnie. He came home as the sun rose, bone-tired, smelling like diesel and metal. He'd nod at me, grumble, "You eat yet?" and collapse into bed without waiting for an answer. We didn't talk much. I stopped asking questions. Not because I didn't have them, but because I already knew they'd be met with his heavy sighs and that glassy stare into the distance. If he missed her, he buried it deep. If he hated her, he never said it aloud. But there were moments, like when he'd overfill his glass of bourbon or slam the cupboard doors harder than necessary, when I knew he hadn't forgiven her either. At school, the rumors started small. A whisper here. A side-eye there. Jaden's mom ran off with the UPS guy. Did you hear she faked her death and moved to Florida? She's probably locked up or something. I tried to tune them out. But the thing about silence is it makes space for everyone else's noise. Some teachers were kind. Ms. Hardy, my 6th grade English teacher, used to slip extra books into my backpack. "Keep your head up, Jaden," she'd say, squeezing my shoulder like she knew too much. But most days, I felt like a puzzle with a missing corner piece, noticeably incomplete. Our house reflected that. The living room TV stayed on even when no one watched it. My dad avoided the kitchen table and ate standing up. On weekends, we barely spoke, unless it was about groceries or the leaking sink. The air inside that house was heavy with all the things we didn't say. I started doing little things to make it feel normal again. Set the table. Cleaned her old spice rack. Played music she used to dance to in the mornings. But every attempt at warmth felt artificial, like forcing laughter in an empty room. By the time I turned 15, the window seat I once sat in every Sunday was just a dusty ledge. I stopped waiting, not because I stopped caring, but because I had to. The house on Sycamore Lane never stopped feeling like a shell, haunted not by spirits, but by the weight of everything left unsaid. And even though her name was no longer spoken, her absence echoed louder with every passing day. It started with a box labeled Christmas lights. I was 16, in the basement looking for an old phone charger, when I found it tucked behind a stack of unopened paint cans and dusty VHS tapes. I peeled back the lid expecting tangled cords and fake pine needles, but instead, I found pieces of her. Envelopes. Receipts. A folded Maryland Transit bus schedule from 2009. There was a letter addressed to Cheryl Mason, not Mom, not Mrs. Kevin Mason. Just her name, written neatly, from a sender I didn't recognize in Reston, Virginia. Inside was a single line. "I booked the hotel for Tuesday. Same spot. I'll be waiting." No signature. No return address. A cold knot tightened in my chest. Next was a crumpled bank statement from a joint account I never knew existed. The last transaction was dated the day she left, $3,000 withdrawn in cash from a Bank of America ATM in Laurel. I held the paper like it might burn me. She didn't disappear. She planned it. She saved money. Booked hotels. Left in a red jacket with a lie wrapped in a kiss. It was never "I'll be right back." It was goodbye. I sat on the cold basement floor, staring at those fragments like I was trying to rebuild a person from scraps. Questions that had always lived in the background of my mind surged forward, now sharpened with proof. Why didn't she take me? Why didn't she say the truth? Why did she erase me from the plan? Upstairs, the walls of our home seemed to lean in closer, heavier. My father was asleep on the recliner, the TV flickering against the bags under his eyes. He never talked about her, not because he'd forgotten, but because remembering was poison. That night, I couldn't sleep. I opened Facebook for the first time in months and searched her name. Nothing. Then I typed Cheryl Mason, Virginia. Pages. Profiles. One caught my eye, a woman with long brown hair and a familiar tilt to her smile. The page was private, but her profile photo was public. She was holding a child. A girl, maybe 2 years old, with soft curls and a red bow in her hair. A girl who looked like me. It felt like swallowing glass. I didn't show Dad the box. I didn't tell anyone. I just began to unravel everything I thought I knew. The whispers at school didn't sound so ridiculous anymore. She's with a new guy. She started a new family. She never looked back. Now I knew they weren't rumors. They were reality, wrapped in ugly truth. She didn't vanish. She escaped. From us. From me. And the more I uncovered, the more I realized. I'd spent years grieving a ghost, but the woman who left me was still out there. Alive. And that was worse than death. It was supposed to be a regular Saturday, helping my cousin Kiara move into her new apartment off St. Charles Parkway. We were on our third trip back from Home Depot when she asked if we could swing by Target for bins and cleaning supplies. I didn't even want to go in. I stayed back near the self-checkout line, scrolling through my phone, waiting for Kiara to finish debating between two nearly identical air fresheners. Then I saw her. She was standing at register 5, holding a toddler on her hip like she'd done it 1,000 times. laughing, smiling. Her hair was longer, the color darker than I remembered. But her profile, the curve of her jaw, the exact shape of her nose, was unmistakable. Cheryl Mason, my mother. My pulse spiked like I'd just run a mile. I froze, halfway between disbelief and fury. It was like the universe had spit her out of some parallel dimension just to see what I'd do. She wore a navy cardigan and jeans, nothing special. But the man standing next to her, mid-40s, clean-shaven, with a hand resting on her back, made everything click. She didn't vanish. She replaced us. The little girl in her arms was maybe 4. She reached for a lollipop from the checkout display, and my mother handed it to her without hesitation. Soft. Loving. Like she hadn't missed a day of motherhood. I ducked behind the soda cooler, breathing hard. Kiara spotted me and jogged over, concerned. "Jay, what's wrong?" I couldn't speak at first. Just pointed. Kiara's eyes followed my finger and widened. "Wait, is that?" I nodded. She grabbed my arm. "You wanna go?" I looked one more time. Watched her swipe her card, laugh at something the man said, and walk out with her new family. Like we never existed. I didn't go after her, not because I wasn't angry, but because I wasn't ready to hear whatever lie she'd tell to justify that life. I needed to know more first. That night, I opened my laptop like a man lighting a match in a room soaked with gasoline. I searched every variation of her name: Cheryl Mason, Cheryl Taylor, even just Cheryl Maryland. After an hour of digging, I found it, a wedding announcement from 2 years earlier. Brian and Cheryl Taylor, married in Reston, Virginia. One daughter, Madison Taylor. Madison, the child she chose. Her Facebook was locked down, but Brian's wasn't. Through his page, I saw birthday party photos, beach trips to Ocean City, date night selfies at Red Robin. Every post painted a life she'd never given me. One where she smiled wide and often, one where I didn't exist. I scrolled through dozens of pictures, the knot in my chest growing tighter with each one. She looked happy, and that hurt more than anything, because for all the years I waited by the window, hoping for a return. She was building a world where I was already forgotten. After that day in Target, I couldn't stop checking her life like it was my second job. I knew where she lived before the week was over: Glen Burnie. Less than 30 minutes from Bowie. From me. She was that close the whole time. That fact burned hotter than all the lies. She didn't move across the country or vanish into some distant city. No, she planted a new life right in the same county, like she wasn't actively erasing me with every mile between us. Close enough to visit. Close enough to write. But she didn't. I'd sit in my car some nights, parked just a few houses down from her split-level home on a quiet street off Crane Highway. I'd watch the porch light flick on, the little girl hop out of the SUV with a backpack, her arms full of drawings and snacks. Sometimes Brian would mow the lawn while Cheryl watered the potted plants by the door. They looked like a Christmas card family. I felt like a ghost pressing against the glass, watching someone else live my life. That obsession, it started small. Just checking her profile, her neighborhood, mapping the drive. Then it turned into full-on surveillance. I memorized their routines. I could have walked up to the door. I almost did, twice. But every time I got out of the car, something pulled me back. Fear, maybe? Or that twisted knot of hope I still hadn't completely killed. Maybe I thought she'd come out and say it: "I'm sorry. I never forgot you." But she never looked my way. Back at home, Dad was slipping. His late shifts turned into no-shows. He started coughing, deep, racking spells that shook the house, and refused to see a doctor. The fridge was almost always empty, the mailbox full of unopened bills. Our house, the one she left behind, was decaying with him. I tried to talk to him once. Just once. "She lives in Glen Burnie," I said, standing in the doorway while he sat in silence, watching old westerns on our dusty TV. He didn't look at me. Just sipped his drink. "I know. You." "What?" "I always knew," he said, voice flat. "Didn't see the point in chasing someone who already decided we weren't enough." I stared at him, waiting for anger, for something. But there was nothing. Just resignation. Maybe that's what broke me the most, not that she left, but that he let her go without a fight. I wasn't like him. I couldn't bury it. Couldn't just move on. I needed to understand why she chose that life and abandoned ours. I needed her to look me in the eye and say what I already knew: you were the part of my life I didn't want to keep. But deep down, a smaller voice whispered something else, something more dangerous. What if she never even thinks about you at all? That thought haunted me more than her absence ever did. I didn't plan it. I told myself I was just driving. Just clearing my head. But when I pulled up to her house on that cold November afternoon, I didn't hesitate. The porch light was already on, even though it was barely past 4. Her front yard was raked clean, neat rows of orange and yellow leaves bagged and tied like everything else in her life. Tidy, presentable, controlled. A wreath hung on the door. It was the kind of place you send postcards from, not one you abandon your child to create. I stood on the porch for a full minute before raising my hand. My fingers shook as I knocked, 3 times. Hard. Footsteps inside. Muffled voices. Then the door opened, and there she was, Cheryl. My mother. She blinked like she'd seen a ghost. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "Hi," I said. My voice felt foreign in my mouth. She clutched the edge of the door like it was holding her up. Jaden. Just hearing her say my name twisted something in me. She stepped out, closed the door behind her, as if to shield the new family from the old one standing on her porch. I can't believe it's you," she said, eyes wide. "You've grown so much." "You didn't think I would?" I snapped. She flinched. "Good." There was a long silence, broken only by the hum of a neighbor's lawnmower in the distance. "Why?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "Why did you leave? Why didn't you call?" "Right. Anything?" Her eyes glossed over. She looked down at her hands. "Your father. He made it impossible. I couldn't stay. I was drowning." "You didn't even try to take me," I said, stepping closer. "You didn't fight. You didn't check in. You just ran. And now you're here, playing house with a new kid, like I never existed." She reached for me, instinct probably, but I stepped back. Her hand hovered in the air, then dropped. "I thought it was better for you," she said weakly. "I wasn't in a place to be a mother." "No, you just didn't want to be my mother," I said. "Don't pretend it was some noble sacrifice. You erased me." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't care. I'd cried enough for the both of us. "You're angry. I get it. I didn't know how to fix it." "You don't," I said coldly. "I didn't come here for a fix. I came here to make sure you see what you left behind." I took one long look at her, really looked, then stepped off the porch. "Jaden," she called, voice cracking. "Please." I didn't turn back. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove. The weight wasn't gone, but something else had taken its place: clarity. She made her choice, and now I had made mine. I didn't plan to post anything, but anger has a way of boiling over, especially when silence doesn't bring peace. After the confrontation, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her face, shocked, tearful, full of excuses. She got to cry, but I'd already cried all my tears years ago. I walked away, but it didn't feel like closure. It felt like unfinished business wrapped in quiet rage. So I opened Facebook. I stared at the blank status box for a while before I started typing. The words poured out of me like they'd been waiting at the edge of my throat for years. Some of you know me. Most of you don't. My name is Jaden Mason. I'm 18 years old. When I was 10, my mother, Cheryl Mason, now Cheryl Taylor, kissed me on the forehead and said she'd be right back. She never came back. No call. No letter. No explanation. She left me with a grieving father and started a new life less than 30 minutes away. She has a new husband, a new daughter, and a new Facebook full of smiles. I was never part of that story. This post isn't about revenge. It's about the truth. Sometimes, the people who look the happiest online are the ones who left the most broken pieces behind. I attached a photo, one I'd found on Brian's public profile weeks earlier. Cheryl, beaming, holding her daughter in front of a birthday cake. Then I hit post. Within an hour, it had 5 shares. By morning, over 200. By the end of the week, it had circled through every corner of suburban Maryland. Old neighbors, classmates, even distant relatives I barely remembered started commenting. She did just vanish. I always wondered what happened to Jaden. Wow. I used to work with her. Had no idea. This is heartbreaking. You deserve better. The comments kept coming. Messages too, from people with their own abandonment stories, people thanking me for saying what they couldn't. But not everyone was kind. Some people took her side. Family members I hadn't heard from in years messaged me privately. She had her reasons. Don't air family business online. You're embarrassing her. Good. She should be embarrassed. For once, the shame didn't belong to me. I didn't check her page again until a week later. It was locked down. Profile picture gone. Brian's page too. Silent, like a storm had passed through and left the windows shattered. Then Kiara sent me a screenshot, one of Cheryl's friends posting that she had taken a leave of absence from work. Personal family emergency. Emergency? No. It was just the truth, finally catching up to her. Her perfect suburban life had a crack in it now, and that crack was me. But it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming the story. Because if she was going to pretend I didn't exist, then I would make damn sure the world remembered I did. It had been 3 weeks since the post. Life quieted down again. The shares stopped. The messages slowed. But something in me had shifted. I felt lighter, even if just a little. For the first time, I wasn't carrying the silence alone. Then the call came. It was a Sunday night. Rain pattered against my window, soft and steady. I was lying in bed, headphones in, half watching a YouTube video I didn't care about when my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Something told me to answer. Hello? There was a pause. Then a small, hesitant voice said, "Is this Jaden?" I sat up. My throat tightened. "Who is this?" "My name's Madison," the voice replied. "My mommy said." "You're my brother." "Is that true?" I stared at the wall, unsure if I'd heard right. She sounded maybe 5. Younger than I thought. Her words were careful, unsure, like she wasn't even sure she was allowed to speak to me. "My mommy's really sad," she added softly. "She cries a lot." I heard her say your name. I closed my eyes. This wasn't what I wanted. This wasn't the fight I'd picked. "How did you get this number?" I asked, gentler than I expected. "She wrote it on the fridge." I remembered it. "I wanted to talk to you. I think we're family." Family. The word landed like a stone in my chest. For so long, I had hated that woman for pretending I didn't exist. Now here was the child she chose, calling me, not with blame, not with anger, just a quiet curiosity. "Does your mom know you're calling me?" I asked. "No," Madison whispered. "But, do you hate her?" I didn't answer right away. What could I say to a 5-year-old who didn't ask to be caught in the wreckage her mother left behind? "I don't hate you," I said finally. She was quiet for a moment. "Can we talk again sometime?" she asked, hope thick in her little voice. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to be the person who broke the cycle, who reached back for the sibling I never knew I had and gave her the truth gently, like unwrapping a gift instead of a wound. But I wasn't ready. "Not yet, I think." "It's better if you talk to your mom," I said, my voice trembling. "Oh," she replied, barely audible. "Okay. I'm sorry, Madison." Then I hung up. And for the first time since all of this began, I cried, not out of anger, not out of grief, but because I finally realized the true cost of what Cheryl had done. She didn't just leave a son behind. She left a future full of possibility, of connection, of family. Shattered, and I had to decide if I'd keep carrying her choices, or make a different one someday. Just not today. The next morning, I changed my number. No warning. No second thoughts. It was like pressing a reset button on a part of my life that had been jammed for years. I deleted Madison's call log, blocked Cheryl's last known email, even logged off Facebook for good. I didn't want to know what she posted next. I didn't want to read the apologies or see her rebuild again. I was done watching from the outside of someone else's life. For years, I had been chasing a mother who lived like I didn't exist. My silence was loyalty. My waiting was hope. But it had only ever cost me pieces of myself, one small ache at a time. I thought anger would heal me. I thought revenge would fill the holes she left. But what actually brought me peace was letting it all go. Quietly. Completely. Dad didn't say anything when I told him. We were eating takeout in the living room. Plastic forks scraping at half-warm lo mein. I just said, I'm cutting them off. For real this time. He nodded, took a bite, and said, took you long enough. That was it. No speech. No moment of bonding. Just a man who had lost, endured, and adapted. The truth was, he'd learned to live without her long before I had, and now, I was finally catching up. Our house on Sycamore Lane still carried the shadows of her absence. The wallpaper peeled in the corners. The heater made that same groan every night when it kicked on. But something had changed in me. It no longer felt like a prison, it felt like mine. I started sleeping better. I stopped checking old photos. I enrolled in HVAC training full-time, poured myself into work. Every time I fixed something, repaired a unit, rewired a breaker, I felt a little stronger. Like I was building a future out of the broken things I'd been handed. One afternoon, I sat on the porch alone. No music. No phone. Just the wind in the trees and the sound of kids playing a few houses down. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for anything. Not for her. Not for closure. Not even for forgiveness. That's when I realized silence wasn't just survival, it was freedom. I didn't owe Cheryl my pain. I didn't owe her another chance to explain why I wasn't enough. I didn't need to carry Madison's innocence like a second burden. I had made it through. Scarred, sure, but whole. People talk about healing like it's a loud, triumphant moment. But sometimes, it's just this, changing your number, not answering the door, and breathing easy for the first time in years. I didn't get my mother back, but I got me back, and that was enough. If this story hit you deep, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Have you ever had to walk away from a toxic family member to save yourself? Your story might help someone else find the strength to let go.